Okay, it's 9 a.m. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting here on July 3rd of this year. I'll call the meeting to order. Barb, would you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Thank you, and good morning, council, staff, guests. As we gather, we recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The Township of Southgate is part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand River, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, Haudenosaunee, and Saugeen Métis. The land that surrounds us is part of who we are as it reflects our histories. May we live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people.
Thank you, Barb. Madam Clerk, is anyone registered for open forum?
None today.
Thank you. I have confirmation of the agenda as presented. Jason and Barb, thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. And I note that Councillor Singh Soares is online this morning. Good morning, Monica.
Mayor Milne, can we just amend the agenda to put the planning reports first?
Sure.
The order of it? Please.
Sure. Do we need an amendment for that, or can we just, unless there's any objections, we'll move the planning reports ahead as Mr. White needs to move along. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest related to any item on today's agenda? No, not seeing one. If one should arise, of course, you can declare it at any time. There are no delegations or presentations. Adoption of the minutes from the last, that would be June 19th of this year, and the special council meeting of June 26th. Jim and Joan, thank you very much. All those in favor? That is carried. All right, so let's, unless anybody objects, we'll move right along to the planning department reports. And I welcome Mr. White to, I was going to say to the podium, but I welcome him to the screen. The first is a zoning bylaw amendment for Nelson H. Bauman. Someone care to move that, please? Jason, seconded by Jim. Phil, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, members of council and staff, for your indulgence today. This property is located at 72968 Southgate Side Road 7. There's an air photo on page 2 of the report. It fronts on the Southgate Road 7, as mentioned, and the north end of the property is bisected by the Saugeen River. There is no access from this lot to Southgate Road 26. A couple of lots that were severed off this original parcel some years ago, or well before 2006. And there are two homes located on these existing lots. One of them, well, both of them are barely visible due to the tree cover and topography on the site. There is an existing house on the property as well. The proposal here is to establish an on-farm diversified use with 500 square meters of storage, and also to keep the existing home on site as a additional residential unit or secondary dwelling. We had a public planning meeting June 26, 2024. There was no concerns from Enbridge, Hydro One, and Bell Canada. Southgate Public Works advised of load restrictions on Side Road 7, but there is safe access to the site, and the second driveway can be approved for this property, and I believe may have already been approved. Grey County advised of the on-farm diversified use requirements in their official plan and the need for compliance with D6 guidelines and proper servicing of the site. The Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority looked at the hazard designation on the property, and this is, as you can see from the mapping at the end, fairly complex site with tributaries to the Saugeen and wooded areas and potential wildlife habitat and so forth. They have worked with the applicant to identify buildable areas on the property, and so the on-farm diversified use that's shown in the site plans would be in compliance with the requirements of the Conservation Authority, as well as county ecology staff who also looked at it from a natural heritage perspective. There was an email from a gentleman named Andrew Black objecting to the proposed industrial or factory use due to the loss of the agricultural lands, the impact on road infrastructure, and concern with adding another home to the existing homes in the area. We have reviewed the proposal from the on-farm diversified use requirements in the township official plan. This is a location that is in an agricultural designation. So the requirements that there be a bona fide farmer and a on-farm or a business registration number would apply in this instance. We believe that the new farm cluster can comply with these requirements and does comply with those requirements. I spoke to the lot creation on the site that occurred years ago, and the need to, or the proposal to retain the existing house that's not in the farm cluster as a secondary unit. And provisions have been placed in the draft zoning amendment to ensure that that residence that is retained remains secondary to the new principal dwelling that would be built as part of the farm cluster. The new provincial planning statement 2024, which is likely to be approved fairly soon, does allow for up to 3 additional units on certain agricultural properties. And there's some criteria in that policy that would be met by this proposal. We also already have provisions in the township zoning bylaw under section 6.13 that allow for the additional dwelling units. And these provisions would also be met by this proposed secondary dwelling that would be kept. I think it's important to keep residential housing wherever it may be. And this property, when I looked at it on the weekend, seemed to be appropriate to retain. It seems to be in relatively good condition and a nice treed lot that would be an appropriate location for a rural home. Our recommendation is that the on-farm diversified use be approved, as well as a secondary dwelling unit, and that the bylaws have been drafted and the zoning amendment prepared in order to allow that to happen. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate the report. Any questions? Barb.
Thank you, through you and to Bill. Bill, I'm not sure I'm understanding the second farm cluster. Doesn't that create MDS issues, distance separation? They're generally, when you have a farmhouse and farm cluster, so you've got the barn, the proposed on-farm diversified use and additional farm cluster seems to be setting it up for 2 farm operations. Is there anything that prohibits this property from a future severance where they would then apply to sever off this additional, the original house and farm cluster?
Mhm.
I note that there's already been a severance, so I think that it's restricted. But I do have concerns with regard to 2 farm operations and who is actually farming the property when on-farm diversified use is supposed to be secondary to the farm operation. Thank
Right.
you.
If I may, through Mayor Milne, the reason there are no accessory buildings associated with this existing house, so there's no barn that I saw on the property or that I can see on the site plans for the property. So there is a home there, and they propose to retain that for rental purposes. So the new farm cluster, the reason it's separated from that existing house is to comply with MDS, and the applicant did provide a calculation and did show the separation from that existing home on the property. So they would be, as far as we can tell, compliant with MDS provisions where the farm cluster is located. So it would be simply, it's just an odd approach, I guess, in a sense that your rental dwelling or your secondary dwelling is already there. And that's what they're proposing in the rezoning application, is to recognize the new farm cluster. It will comply with MDS. It will be the farm operation for the property, and the existing home would become the secondary dwelling, and it would be restricted in floor area and size to what there is there now. And so it would remain secondary and comply with the 6.13 provisions that are already in the township zoning bylaw.
Go ahead.
So the terminology of farm cluster doesn't, I just wanted to make it clear that the farm cluster, there's a separate house. Generally, it would be closer to the farm operation.
Mhm.
A secondary unit would be closer to a farm operation, but in this case, they are separating it because of the additional farming operation.
If I may, that is correct. There is a livestock barn in the new farm cluster, so they're keeping that barn from the existing home on the property. And you're right, it's what's there now is, in my mind, just a residence on the farmland. There was no associated buildings with it. Certainly, I never saw any when I was there on the weekend. It's an interesting site though, and an interesting proposal.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Barb. Any other questions? I'll call a question. Are all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Moving on to the corresponding bylaw to enable the zoning bylaw for Nelson Bauman. I need a mover, please. Barb and Jim, thank you. Anything further to add, Bill, on the bylaw?
No, I don't, Mayor Milne.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? All those in favor? That opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the zoning bylaw amendment for Joseph and Emerson Bowman. Someone care to move that, please? Jason and Jim, thank you. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor Milne. This property was before Committee of Adjustment back in November. There was a provisional consent issued for it. This proposal addresses the lot area issue that was identified during the severance process. The parcel right now is just over 40 hectares in size. The proposal was to split it in half and create two 20-hectare parcels. The issue at the time of severance was access to Highway 89, and subsequent to that, in November, staff had been working with the applicant and his agent regarding the upgrading of Side Road 21 to a municipal standard. And you'll see that agreement later on in your agenda that provides for the improvements to that road in order to provide a viable, safe access to the highway. This is generally flat to gently rolling topography. There are some hedgerows along the site, and the existing farm cluster is to the east of the hedgerow. Also, as part of this rezoning, there is an on-farm diversified use proposed. That would be accessed from Side Road 21, and it would comply with the general provisions that are set in the township official plan. It's 750 square meters in floor area and 500 square meters outdoor storage. Back in June, I guess last week, June 26th, there were no concerns expressed from the Conservation Authority, Enbridge Gas, Hydro One, and Bell Canada. Public Works talked about load restriction and the non-winter maintenance on Side Road 21 and the need for road widening and turning circles. And these provisions have been addressed in the proposed servicing agreement that is presented for council later on the agenda. So there will be road widening, and there will be reserves along the highway and space for the turning circle to be established. The county also advised of the typical requirements for on-farm diversified use, the D6 guidelines, and there are hazard lands on the property, but they're outside this building envelope that is proposed on the property. And the requirement for environmental impact study was waived. This on-farm diversified use is located in a rural designation. So there are slightly different provisions for it. There is not a need for it to be a bona fide farmer, although from all indications, that is what is proposed, is for the farming of this property with the on-farm diversified use secondary to that. The lot size of 20 hectares is half of the original township lot. I did mention the road widening requirements in this, and there is the need for a bulb to be taken off so that maintenance vehicles, emergency vehicles can turn around on side road 21. The zoning that has been drafted for this recognizes the lot lines that exist prior to the road widening coming off. So the 20 hectares, we have a reference plan that's draft for it. I haven't calculated all the land sizes, but in the event that the 20 hectares became 19.5, the zoning allows for the original lot configurations to be maintained, so that there isn't a zoning issue created by road widening coming off. Normally, you do not penalize a property for giving road widening by addressing, requiring lot frontage and lot area to be met. So we've just, in the event that when it comes time to dedicate this road widening later on, that it creates a deficiency, the zoning has been written to address that. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer questions. The proposal is generally in compliance with provincial policy, as well as their guidelines for agricultural uses or on-farm diversified uses in agricultural areas.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions from council? Barb?
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Through you to Bill. On page 3, Bill, I think maybe it's just a little confusing. You keep referring to 20 hectares.
Mhm.
So the farm parcel remains 20 hectares, but then it refers to the proposed severed lot will have 12 hectares farmable, excluding the wood lot and drainage course, and the retained lot will have 15 hectares farmable, not including the wood lot. I think maybe, is that from a different file, or like, if it's 20 hectares?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I just subtracted some of the hazard lands from it. That's all. So just to show council that more than half the lot is still farmable.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Any other questions from council? I'll call the question. Martin, you have a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Bill, on the overhead map, the severed part, you said you took away hazard. I'm assuming that blue sketch line is the hazard area or EP area. That piece is kind of landlocked at the back to farm, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's always interesting with these because there's these parcels that sit like that, but I guess they could go down the road allowance. I'm not sure where their crossing is for that, but the road allowance was, when I was out there on the weekend, it seems like quite a long way of it is already used. So that may be their access
Okay.
back there.
Okay. Any other questions from council? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Now move on to the bylaw, the corresponding bylaw for the above zoning bylaw amendment for Joseph and Emerson Bowman. Someone move the adoption of the bylaw. Jim and Joan, thank you very much. Any questions? Question, go ahead, Jason.
Well, just more of a comment I wanted to make. We talk about ag land, and that farm there, actually, they've probably gained 50 acres, 40 acres in farmland that they've cleared up. And so I just wanted to make a point that they do have access back that road. I know it quite well. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, we're ready for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Moving on to the service agreement that Bill had alluded to for Joseph, Salome, Rachel, and Emerson Bowman. Someone care to move that, please? Joan, thank you. And Jason? Bill?
Yeah. Again, the servicing agreement implements conditions of the severance. On page 2 of the report, there's a series of bullet points that outline general provisions. So there's insurance, the provision for the security equal to the amount of the estimate for the work, which is showing at $271,000. These costs would be borne by the applicant. There's an insurance requirement, as I mentioned. There is a provision in there if someone on the other side of Side Road 21 has the idea of accessing this new road that's being paid for by the applicant, that there would be some provision or best efforts made to try and recover some of this cost. But it really would be up to the owner to monitor that and to deal with any future landowners who may come forward on that parcel. As I mentioned, there's $5 million insurance and general indemnity and liability clauses to protect the municipality during the construction process. The MTO work is slightly different than the township work. The public works manager could identify the key differences, but MTO only allows certain contractors to do work on their highway and certain design people to do design on the highway. So they would have to comply, this owner would have to comply with the MTO obligations as it pertains to the work on that actually connects the new road, the new municipal road to the highway. So we're recommending that council consider a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign that agreement.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Jim, do you want to have anything to add on this one?
Good morning, good people. No, as Bill had mentioned there that we cannot do the work in the intersection of the NPO right away. That has to be a pre-qualified contractor. So that work would be carried out by them, then we would take on doing the rest and do the turn lane with our forces and subcontractors. And those estimates are all in the costs borne by the proponent.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Barb?
Through you, just one question about the estimate of 271,000. If the costs are more, specifically with the MTO entrance, that is still, that's still covered by the owner if it doesn't come in to our budget.
Yep.
Yeah, those are actual costs that would be incurred. So this was the estimates that Triton had come up with, and they are on the list of being pre-qualified for engineering for MTO work. So the paving's only going to be in the MTO right away portion. Once we get into the township side road 21, it'll be gravel with a gravel turn as well. So
Very good. Thanks, Jim. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Now we come to the corresponding bylaw for the same servicing agreement. Someone move that, please. Jim and Joan, thank you. Anything further to add, Bill or Jim? No? Okay. Any questions from council? All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the zoning bylaw amendment for Brook Lane Industries. Someone care to move that, please? Joan, seconded by Jason. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor Milne. This is another proposal for an on-farm diversified use. This site is just east of Hopeville at 1855552 Gray Road 9. There's a street view of the site in the report, as well as a site plan on the air photo, as well as a Conservation Authority mapping in attachment 2. This is also a fairly complex site. We're dealing with tributaries to the South Saugeen River. It's a 40-hectare parcel. There are low-lying floodplain areas and wetlands related to the South Saugeen. I believe also there is an application for tile drainage that the Conservation Authority is considering. So some of the drainage on that to allow for additional farm production is being addressed through a separate process. It's it's generally rolling and slopes toward the South Saugeen tributaries. The proposal here is a 750 square meter workshop and detached power room with 500 square meters of storage. The applicant's site plan has changed since originally beginning to discuss this with the township through pre-consultation. It's been moved, the on-farm diversified use has been moved up closer to the existing home and more on the northwest of the property to stay out of any potential hazardous areas identified in the Conservation Authority mapping. At the public meeting, there were no objections from the traditional utility companies that comment on these. Public Works advise that there's safe access to Gray Road 9 and that road widening is not required. Gray County advised of the on-farm diversified use requirements, and also county ecology looked at the natural areas on the property and noted that the development as proposed is outside the threatened areas and the requirement for an EIS was waived. I mentioned the conservation comments. The mapping is attached showing the identified areas where fill and construction permits would be required, and that the site plan had been revised through the pre-consultation process to move the proposed on-farm diversified use outside of the associated agricultural barns outside the any potentially natural hazards on the site. This one is in a rural designation. You can see the requirements in the official plan are being met in terms of the maximum zoned area and the maximum floor space for the use. This would be in compliance with the provincial policy statement and the guidelines for agricultural uses. The zoning has been written to restrict the development to the very most northwest part of the site and to maintain proper setbacks and distances from the environmental protected areas. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this.
Thank you, Bill. Are there any questions from council? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the bylaw, corresponding bylaw for Brook Lane Industries to the zoning bylaw amendment. Someone care to move that, please? Martin, thank you. Second by Jim. Anything further, Bill, on the bylaw?
No, your
Nope.
worship.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the servicing agreement for Peter and Rebecca O'Donnell. I believe this is the one down in Cedarville. Someone care to move that, please? Barb, seconded by Martin. Bill, please.
Mayor Milne, I can address this one. It was, as you mentioned, this is an older severance, couple years old. It's nearing its completion dates. The provision here was the need for a servicing agreement to upgrade, I'm going to say it wrong, probably Fears Road in Cedarville.
That's close enough.
Close enough. How do you say it? Oh, sorry.
I didn't know that's how you say it.
Okay. Anyway, there was a need for road widening and upgrades to the roadway. These were negotiated with Public Works and put into the agreement that was prepared by legal counsel with comment from planning staff and from the Public Works manager. So I think the provisions are in this agreement to upgrade the road as needed. And I believe the township forces are going to assist with this work, and that the proper deposit of $50,000 has been provided that would cover the work and any planning and legal administrative fees that have been associated with this lot creation.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions or Jim, do you have anything to add? Yes, no? Just asking.
This is similar to the one you just seen. but it's a lot shorter distance. I think it's only 15 meters before it turns into the turning circle, so you know, it's not the same prices. There's no paving. We don't have other contractors that are MTO involved or anything like that, so that's the scope of works that we've estimated to install the turn circle.
Very good. Thank,
Gravel, of course.
very good. Thank you, Jim. Any questions from council? Martin?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. This is more for you, Jim. Looking at the kind of the map on page 199. It has the road going up, then a little road going off. Is that where the circle is going to be for the turnaround or closer to the buildings? Just for,
Jim?
Yeah, no, it's where the existing road turns around, basically at that house,
okay.
is going 15 meters and then into the circle, out into the field. That what you see as a right of way up the way is an old survey that still exists, that's the way
Oh, okay.
the lands are mapped, but no, we're not going up to
Oh, that way.
that to that point.
Yeah, okay, it kind of makes sense because with that little area already there with the like the two roads meet, you could put a circle in there, but then you have to maintain that extra road on the way up, so it doesn't,
Yeah,
it doesn't, okay, I can see that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Corresponding bylaw for Peter and Rebecca O'Donnell, the servicing agreement, which we just talked about. Someone care to move that, please? Martin, thank you. Seconded by Joan. Any questions from council? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, moving on to the site plan agreement for NB Martin Manufacturing Incorporated. Someone care to move that, please? Joan, seconded by Jim. Thank you. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor Millen. This one required an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment. I was not involved directly with this one till later on in the process, but we're now dealing with the implementation of the on-farm diversified use on this parcel. As council is aware, site plan approval is a delegated authority. So the site plans that have been presented have been reviewed by staff and are generally in compliance with the official plan and zoning amendment that have been written for it. And the site plan agreement has been prepared and is available for council to see. And we're recommending that the bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement be considered. Just a quick look at the agreement itself. Council often asks about D6 guidelines and issues regarding noise. And if you look at Schedule C, there is a provision on there for the doors to be closed and such if there is any noise issues. So that's under Section 3 of Schedule C. And that's been a normal clause that I've seen in most of the site plan agreements for on-farm diversified uses that have come forward in the past to council. We're recommending the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the agreement.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Any questions from council? Martin?
Yeah, just one for clarification here, Bill. It says subject lands. The subject lands are 9.7 acres. So we're usually talking hectares. That's under a 20-acre parcel, man, is it? Every other time it's always hectares. Now it's 9.7 acres. So just clarification.
I'm not entirely sure if that is correct. It is, as I said, I hadn't been involved with that. I would like to check that to be sure, but it is a smaller parcel for sure. That's why it needed the official plan amendment that went forward. That might be a hectare site, but size.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Barb?
Would it be appropriate Would it be appropriate to take a pause just to clarify that? That is I'm pretty sure this is the one that was proposed to be 10 hectares. I would have great concerns if it was actually acres. Not supportive of it. So I would take a recess to clarify
do
from
that.
the original planning file.
Madam Clerk, do you think we could do that if we took a quick recess? All right, it is 25 to 10, so let's reconvene in 5 minutes or so. All right.
I
Madam Clerk?
have, sorry, I have Alicia saying 24.75 acres. So I imagine,
Is the entire parcel.
I imagine the report should have said hectares.
Well, that's one, just for
Yeah.
clarification, that, it's always hectares now.
Right.
But we can,
Lots of
we can
acres.
still recess and Bill and Alicia can confirm that, but
Sure.
that's what our.
So let's
system is.
recess for a few minutes and let staff just confirm that. All right. Okay, we'll bring the meeting back to order. Thank you all. Madam Clerk?
Yes, so it's confirmed that the report should have said 9.7 hectares, which is a total of 23.92 acres.
Very good. Well, thank you for that clarification. Good question. Good catch, Mr. Shipston. Okay. Anything else, Bill, on this one?
No, Mayor Milne.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Moving on to the bylaw, the corresponding bylaw for the site plan agreement. Someone care to move that, please? Jason, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. That concludes the planning section. Thank you very much, Bill. All
Thank
the
you.
best to your family for the rest of the day.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go back now to. Forget who we skipped over. Economic development, the important one. Morning, Brenna. Brenna has a report here regarding business retention and expansion. So good morning, Brenna, again, and welcome.
Good morning. Do you have to move to?
Oh, I need a motion. Yes, I do. You're right. Yeah, she works for the clerk's department today, does she? Well done. Yeah. Someone care to make that motion? Jim and Barb. Brenna.
Thank you so much, Mr. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Does it need to be
it's on.
closer? You're good. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm pleased to present for today our results of our BRNE study, which we did in-house. We launched it just in early or late 2023. And we were able to connect with 73 businesses across the township from a variety of different industries. And it was a great opportunity to identify the priorities for our businesses. And so the results will be summarized today, and then actions that address these priorities will also be presented. And I just want to say one of the things with doing it in-house was we're not graphic designers. So we tried our best to make the report look as pretty as possible. So shout out to my student, Mary Green, who helped me with some of the formatting on this.
It looks awesome.
So thank you. Just as a background, a BRNE is a program to collect and analyze data from the business community and develop actions that foster a positive environment for business, job creation, and investment. So the 2023 BRNE or 2024 BRNE program was launched at the end of 2023 when we finalized our questions. And this program was in alignment with our 2023 to 2027 Community Strategic Plan and Goal 1 to support the growth and development of existing businesses in the township, and to conduct the action of doing a business retention and expansion study and implementing the results from the study. Next slide, thank you. So when we started our BRNE, we notified our resource network, which were the other organizations within the region that support our businesses. We notified them that we might be referring our businesses to them as we went along, as we surveyed our businesses. If we saw any red flags or need for support from them, we would send them on to them. As we identified, there was about 200 or more businesses in the township. We aimed to survey 40 to 60 of them, and we surpassed this goal. Basically, the survey was very short with the basic questions from AMAFRA that we were required to put in, and we recognize that business owners, their time is precious, so we just wanted to take about 30 to 40 minutes of their time to interview them. We just added 2 extra questions regarding which local supports they had accessed. And then we had additional questions for manufacturers, as manufacturing is one of the largest and fastest growing industries in Southgate. And you can just see the timeline here. The 73 businesses were interviewed between January 12th and March 26th of this year. So next slide. And they were contacted via phone, email, and walk-ins. 16 were manufacturing businesses, so that's about 22% of the total number of businesses were manufacturing. Most were in person at the business, and also it was winter, so sometimes we opted for on phone, and then We also did some surveys via paper and online. As you can see, the layout of the businesses, the 11 in other areas were mostly more so on the west side and rural around Mount Forest area, so just outside of Holstein. And then follow-ups were conducted within one business day. So the next slide showcases with our follow-up, we sent the businesses information about various programs in the region that they would benefit from accessing. So this was a great opportunity to tell businesses about our community improvement plan, opportunities through the Business Enterprise Center, if they needed support with financing through SEDC, Gray Ag Services, the Chamber Home and Garden Show, if they're interested in trade shows. And then under other, those were oftentimes just programs outside of this list. And sometimes they were referrals to planning services or building services. So supports within our own township. Next slide. As you can see, most of the businesses were locally owned and operated with one location, or some had multiple locations. So 95% were locally owned and operated. And a lot of them were long-standing businesses. So over 37% had been in operation for over 25 years. And also, as we'll see later, I think it was about 60% or so only had about 1 to 4 employees. So a lot of them were micro businesses. And this is the layout of the different types of businesses we interviewed. And I would note with agriculture, there was many business owners who were also involved in agricultural businesses, but they interviewed on behalf of their other business. So they may have had another business in manufacturing or retail. So that's kind of a hidden industry in these results. And then other services would be mostly vehicle and equipment repair services. Next slide. So in this slide, businesses were asked what their general impression of Southgate as a place to do business was, and 74% either stated good or excellent, which was very promising. And then when they're asked what their outlook was for their industry, 53% said that their industry was growing. So that was also positive. In the next slide, it just the businesses were asked in the last 3 years, has your attitude about doing business become more positive, more negative, or not changed? So a lot of businesses said that their attitude about doing business in the township had not changed. And then a lot of their positive and negative feedback was related to growth. So on the positive side, for the feedback was seeing the rise in small scale manufacturing was benefiting other related sectors that were offering business to business services. Lots were saying that they had longtime customers in the areas and has supportive client bases there. Many said that the residential expansion was benefiting their business. So businesses that had related trades, businesses or construction. Also businesses saying the proximity to the GTA was beneficial. And then under the negative change in attitude, some mentioned their lack of recognition they felt for the contributions of their business to the community. Others said there were fewer new customers than expected from the new residential growth. So lots of people moving to the area, but not necessarily shopping in our downtowns. And of course, I just say, obviously, a lot of these feedback are already familiar with the township. So the next section, they were asked to rate various factors of doing business in the township. And you can see they're positive about roads, support from other business, support from residents, mostly of their long-term customer base. And cell phone service, although this differs quite a bit throughout the township, it was found. Availability of adequate electricity, although lots of industries saying that they would want phase 3 power. And then just negative feedback on property taxes, local roads and streets, and availability of adequate housing. So the next slide showed that in the next 18 months, a lot of businesses are just planning to stay the same due to uncertainty in the economy or just satisfaction with their current workload and operations. 34% were looking at expanding, which was promising. And then there was a few other that were looking at downsizing, relocating, selling, or closing. And those businesses were given support if they so wanted support. And then below that, we just our various businesses that were looking to expand said that they'd need an increase in workforce predominantly, and an increase in floor space, and then need to develop other services for customers. So the next slide. And then a lot of the businesses, I said in the last 3 years, they hadn't had to change their numbers of staff. I noted that many businesses had long-term staff that had stayed with their business for quite some time, but we're looking over the next several years with retirements of that changing. And many businesses saying that they recruited through their personal network and referrals, and then others had success using Indeed or local Facebook groups. So the next slide. So here is kind of our additional question that we asked about, sorry about the small font, but about the other services that businesses had used from our regional resource network and partners. I noted here that only 36 responded, and they could select multiple responses saying that they had used any of these services. So there were 73 businesses. So just under half reported that they had used any of these services, which is unfortunate. But you can see the most prominently used were various resources through Grey County, the Chamber of Commerce, and then Grey Ag Services. Again, you can see there's 12 used Grey Ag, and there's only 8 agricultural businesses. So again, many of the businesses also had agricultural roots there. The next slide. And then these were just showing another, not shown here, is many addressed internet speed as being a top barrier in their technological needs. And this is obviously well known to our township. It's that we have different levels of service for internet across the township. And then many struggled with their understanding of digital marketing and other versions of marketing, relying on their longtime customer bases or their already established networks to tell people about their services. And then this graph shows kind of the other services that businesses were interested in. So they're interested in business working sessions. It's supposed to say networking. My apologies there. So networking, more information about e-marketing, social media, and digital advertising. And trade shows, and those kinds of things. So the next slide, this is just a summary of our manufacturing data. So again, 22% of the businesses were involved in manufacturing, and just to explain, some businesses felt like they were too new or too small to be able to give feedback. So some of their feedback isn't reflected here. But it's noted that all the wood and metal manufacturers had been in operation for 25 years or less, which obviously shows that it's a very new industry to the township. And 56% of the manufacturing businesses had 1 to 4 staff, including the owners and operators. But promisingly on this graph, it shows that production volumes had, as well as productivity, prices, and profits in in the manufacturing businesses had generally increased over the past 2 years, which is excellent. And the next slide. This is just showing that many of the businesses reported that their space was at capacity or in need of modernizing. And then also some said that their facilities were underutilized. So maybe they didn't have enough staff and they could actually add another shift in their production. So that's why they're saying maybe they're underutilized. So generally their attitude hadn't changed in the past 3 years about doing business in the township. The majority of the manufacturers were in the Dundalk area. And 50% said their industry was growing, while the other half said the industry was stable. And they are making investments in equipment and machinery. And many said that an emerging technology would help to change their primary product and how it's produced. All right, so then we move to our action plan. Essentially, from the feedback that we received, and you can see in the report, we addressed some of the opportunities and challenges identified through these results. So we came up with some action items. There was a lot of feedback about confusion regarding planning and building processes. So the action is actually already in process to develop an online process for applying for planning and building permits. And then part of this is as an economic development officer to ensure that I'm helping businesses with their understanding of that process so that they're able to apply online with little difficulty. And then you can see the measure there. The next priority is communications and knowledge of local resources. As we identified earlier, many businesses aren't aware of a lot of the services available to them or accessing the services, and that kind of leaves grant money and service supports on the table that our businesses could be accessing. So under this action, we'll send out a quarterly economic development newsletter and then incorporate that with a business walks or business visitation program to follow up with our businesses and connect in person about those supports highlighted in the newsletter, just to increase their awareness and make sure they get on board with those supports. The next priority is our business recognition. We're working with the chamber to help include more businesses in their business awards program. Previously, you could only be nominated for a business award if you were a chamber member, but we only have about 18 members in the township at the moment. So that impairs a lot of businesses from applying for awards. So we're in discussions with them to open up those awards so non-chamber members can apply, and then just using social media to highlight businesses and show support and increase knowledge of residents of those businesses. So networking, organizing more networking events, just it's kind of simple, bringing the events that are already organized by the Business Enterprise Center and the Chamber to Southgate, utilizing the library and other space that we have available. And these don't have to be formal, but they can be more of a meet and greet format, anything that gets more businesses interacting, especially as we identified there's a lot of home-based businesses in the township, getting them connected with brick and mortar businesses. And then training. So again, bringing a lot of those training activities already offered by the library, the Business Enterprise Center, and the Chamber into Southgate, using some of our facilities across the township so that we have more of our businesses involved and accessing those trainings. So this is the next slide. Perfect. And then the final slide is, then we have marketing. So doing more marketing to promote shopping local. And the plan for this is to access funding through our TO7 to do a marketing campaign. So that would be within the next year. And then also Grey County has videos and images of the township that we can utilize for that. So we're already utilizing resources that are already out there and have already been developed. And then finally, we have one that kind of focuses on the priority of expanding and modernizing manufacturing, working more with our manufacturers to bring them together so that they have more access to training, networking, and relevant grants for them, so that they can expand their productivity and then connect them to local resources in Ontario that are available for them to increase their services and their business capacity. Essentially, all these actions will be addressed in the next 24 months, and they will be reported on to council, and they will be measured using the measures highlighted here. And yes, all our resource network members have been notified and have given feedback and are on board with this plan. We've also, thank you so much to our township team that helped to give feedback on this and put together the surveys. So from here, if this is approved by council, then we'll carry out and implementing this plan through the next 2 years, utilizing these results. So thank you for your attention. And do you have any questions?
Thank you, Brenna. Good report. Any questions from council? Joan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Brenna, for that extensive report. And Mr. Mayor, for your very optimistic message. And
Oh, yes.
Brenna, I know that the main goals of business retention are to provide assistance with issues that could force a company to fail or close and to prevent them from relocating to a new community. I've seen quite a few businesses start up in the downtown core, Dundalk, and failed because of rent or not enough business. I know you have no control over the rent or the landlord, but what kind of resources this business retention is looking to offer from this report? I know you mentioned something about the newsletters and the home-based business. How are we gonna get to them so that they can know, or the ones that have already moved in and moved out because there's just not enough business? And also the fact that most of the new people really go back to work, so they shop there, and we kind of lose focus as to say, come back here and shop. So what are some of the things that we're going to be doing with this business and retention to get them to really go downtown and help these businesses? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think with the new businesses that are coming in and through this business kind of visitation and walks program, we're hoping to have consistent communication with them to communicate the various supports that are available, so that when they do have difficulty maybe with their facilities, they know that they can reach out to us and we can find, perhaps if they need to find another location or they have to change the way that their business is being run to better accommodate the conditions that are before them, we can do that. So a lot of our plan is to work more closely with our partners to be able to refer our businesses to their resources, and then also maintain connection with those businesses so that when they do face an issue like potential closure or moving, that they can reach out to us and we can address that as it comes up.
Thank you, Brenna. Good report.
Any other questions? Martin?
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Brenna. First off, good report. Thank you for letting me be part of this. The original draft and what have you. We talked about that. One question, 13 and other areas. That was Mount Forest, you said?
There were, I would say a lot of them were just outside of Mount Forest,
Yeah.
the area outside of Holstein, but in between, or others were kind of on the west side. So more so rural, yes, or closer to Durham.
So were they on-farm shops then? Or I know there's a couple of bike shops and sewing shops that way, but.
It was a variety of
A
different
variety?
businesses,
Okay.
yes.
That's great. One question before comment. You mentioned the Chamber of Commerce, non-members being nominated. I guess it's two questions. You mentioned 18 members. Is that just 18 members of Chamber in Township, or is that 18 for the whole Grey Bruce?
No,
So-
thank you for the
so it's-
question. Thank
Yeah.
you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. There's, no, so the Chamber of Commerce has, I believe, over 200 members, possibly 300. For Southgate region, but for the Township of
Yep.
Southgate, we only have between 18 and 20 members. So I was wondering
Yeah.
why that was a thing, and yes.
So what's the dues? Do you think that's part of the problem?
It's possible that part of the issue is they're not as familiar with the Southgate Chamber. It is new. It does take time for
Oh, yeah.
businesses to buy into it. And I think this is part of it is consistently working with them to coordinate events and initiatives so that our businesses see the value in it and are ready to buy in. But as happens with anything that's a new initiative, people do take a while to warm up to ideas and they need to see it in action.
Okay.
Thank you.
And my comment is with the affirmative and negative points on, there was one page where it had 7 bullets about negative change and 6 of them we have no control over. As
Mhm.
Councillor Jones, with the rents and stuff like that. And then there was another one on 82, same thing. A lot of those things we don't have any control over, like as a township. But I was, when I read it, I was shocked that only 61% of them had no business plan. And if you don't look at your strengths and weaknesses, that SWOT, even though some people say it's passé, it actually works. And that's part of the business plan. If you don't have that and you don't know your strengths and weaknesses, 61% is more open to failure. So that was a good thing that you put in there and was asked because it's crucial. So
Yes.
anyway, thank you.
Thank you for that comment. And through you, that was a required question through OMAFRA, and that's kind of showing, as you said, if people don't have a plan, it does make it difficult for business. And even if they don't evaluate what their market is, who they're marketing to, who their target audience is, that might be part of the reason why the business isn't doing well, because they don't have the market within the township. But it does kind of show that businesses, there's free resources through the Business Enterprise Center to be able to develop a business plan. So that's kind of showing our need to access those services more so that businesses can get more support with their strategies.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions from council? Barb?
Thank you. And through you, I was just going to tag off of Councillor Shipston's comment about the chamber. If there's only 18 members in Southgate out of 200 businesses that you have calculated exist in Southgate, I'm just wondering if this pitch for recognition through the chamber for non-members minimizes the benefit that is part of being a member and could create an issue with the members that have joined that, now we've minimized their benefit. If that was something to go through. I know that Councillor Singh Soares is a director on the chamber board and you are a liaison with the chamber. So I'm sure that these issues and concerns will be taken back. I wonder about, are the businesses challenged to join the chamber due to their perception of return on investment? There's the annual.
Sorry, can I have a point of order, please? I'm not sure if it's point of order, but because this is now going into discussion about the Chamber of Commerce, and as I am a board of directors, I'm going to recuse myself from the further discussion for this particular matter.
Okay.
Thank you. And so I'm just wondering if the return on investment is a challenge to the businesses or to join the chamber, because there's the annual membership fee and then they charge for for attendance at the networking sessions. And I don't know what all of those charges are. So I'm sure the chamber is going to look at all of those aspects. I'm just wondering, we are supposed to evaluate our membership in the chamber annually. We contribute $10,000 a year. I think we need to make sure that we are getting return on investment as well. So I'll leave that with you, Brenna, to pass that along and do that research. But I thought this was a really great report. It highlighted a lot of strengths. It highlighted a lot of opportunities where you're going to help businesses access the services that they need or that they were no longer aware of or they weren't aware of. So thank you for that. Just wondering, just going to do we still have the welcome bags? Do we still distribute welcome bags to residents and businesses that come to the municipality?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, from my understanding, we don't have them, but through the Great Bruce Local Immigration Partnership, we do have a welcome package. It's geared more towards newcomers that might have recently immigrated. So we have those, but we could, that was the suggestion, is we could incorporate information about how to start a business in Southgate with those resources, because a lot of newcomers are interested in starting businesses and many new residents are running home-based businesses. So although to answer your question, we do not have a welcome package at the moment, but we do have an online welcome booklet through the GB Lib.
Follow up.
Sure.
So just to that point, part of your research showed that getting the information to our new residents, our growing population, to know that there's a library, that there are businesses downtown. I don't know how many times I've heard from residents, like, there's a library, but I'm sure that it's the same about businesses. Where do we see it on Facebook all the time, in search of a automotive repair place, in search of someone who can fix a sewing machine. And I think you're doing a great job in getting that information out. I think this is a fantastic report, and I'll look forward to seeing the results in 2 years and as you do those progress updates. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Martin.
Yeah, Brenna, just off what you said about home-based businesses, was there a lot included in the businesses in Dundalk? 48 did they have good? You know what I'm saying?
Thank you for your question. There were several included. I wouldn't say that was a significant portion because we utilized our business directory that we already had, and then downtown walks to tell about the business retention and expansion. So more so brick and mortar, but there were a significant amount of home-based businesses. So thank you.
Joan. Oh, sorry. You finished, Martin? Oh, okay, good. Joan.
Oh, this is not really a question, more of a information. I know of a lot of home-based businesses. I don't know how you connect with them or how you're going to connect with them. What I could do though is ask them to get in touch with you based on the fact that I know that there are lots of home-based business in the new subdivision. So if that, or you could give me some of your business card and I could hand it out to them. So they will connect with you and you will get to know more.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Counselor. And through you, I do have a list of some of the home-based businesses, and through social media, I've interacted with a few of them. But yes, any other referrals that would be welcome. Thank you.
Jason.
I was just curious, what percentage did the Mennonites participate much, and then they won't join the chamber, will they, or that I know of, but I wasn't sure.
Thank you for your question, and through you, there were many Mennonite, a significant amount of Mennonite businesses who participated, who run both manufacturing businesses and other businesses throughout the township. They weren't as interested in the resource network supports or the chamber. I don't think that might be something they're interested in, but some of them were interested in joint marketing, shop local campaigns that would encourage people to shop generally in business. They preferred not to have their personal businesses highlighted, but they were very interested in the joint marketing type initiatives. Yes, but not as much the networking.
Brenna, over the years, I've been on council. There's been at least 2 of these, maybe more done over the years. I don't know, recognizing that, you know, the mixture of businesses changes over the years and the questions, you know, there's nuances there. Generally, have you compared past BRNE questionnaires or answers to see how are we getting, I don't want to say better, but are we getting more responsive to these things or less, do you think, over time? Or have you even done that perspective?
I would say the last, thank you for the question. The last BRNE I looked at, it was from 2008 and was updated in 2013. And there was a focus on retail businesses, mostly in the downtown Dundalk. It was a while ago that I looked at it, but some of the feedback did seem to be kind of consistent with what we're hearing now related to high vacancy rates, the state of the downtown. So some of it was quite similar, I would say,
Right.
to that. But I think there's other opportunities coming forth with residential expansion for improvement in the downtown, but it does show that change does take a lot of time to take place. So that's the thing I noted. And that's why with this one, I kind of wanted to focus on things, businesses that were outside of the downtown, like manufacturing and other parts of Southgate, just to offer a different perspective.
Excellent. Thank you. And from what I heard, it was appreciated that you took the time to canvass businesses outside of our urban centers. Okay, any further questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of receiving this? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brenna. Deputy Treasurer, do we need a break? 10:15? Is it? Yes, 10:15. Well, let's recess for 10 minutes and we'll come back and deal with the Deputy Treasurer's report. Okay, it's 25 past. Let's bring the meeting back to order. I'll invite a mover for the CCBF municipal funding agreement. Barb, seconded by Jason. Akash, welcome. The floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, Your Worship. Thank you. A pretty straightforward report. The CCBF, most of us would know it as the gas tax administered through AMO, is a predictable capital grant that municipalities receive. We don't have to make an application for it. It is a Government of Canada grant, which AMO has signed an agreement with the Government of Canada to administer it within the province. This municipal funding agreement basically allows us to continue receiving these funds on an annual basis. The term of the agreement is 10 years, starting April 1, 2024 to March 31st, 2034. In the report, I've outlined the amounts of money we will receive over the next 5 years. And I've also outlined a few projects that we have accomplished through the monies that we've received through the CCBF. If there's any further questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from council? Martin.
Thank you. Good morning, Akash. Thanks for the report. It's good to see that kind of money. The changes you said to the agreement was for the populations over 30,000 for housing needs assessment. And it says, well, the township doesn't need to complete the assessment within that timeline. All municipalities facing houses pressures are encouraged. Do you think it would be a good thing to do, tying in with asset management and what have you?
Thank you, Councillor Shifton, through Your Worship. Unfortunately, I haven't had a time to look into the housing needs assessment and what that would entail and how it ties into the other documents that we are required to maintain. But I can certainly at a later date go through the requirements and how it ties into those other documents. I can go through that and bring back that information.
Go ahead, Martin.
I didn't mean for you to do it tomorrow or anything like that, because it is long term. It's going to be a while for 30,000, but with the houses coming in and the development, it might be nice to have in the back pocket. Would you be using Grey counties when you do look at it? Would you be using all the percentages of growth from the county and what we've done ourselves? Like, you have a matrix to do work on it, basically.
So again, like I said, I'm not sure what the housing needs assessment would entail. I've had absolutely no time to look into it, mainly because we are, as per last census, we're at about 8,500 population. So we have some time before we get to that 30,000. I would assume we would get there within the term of this agreement. However, that is something that I haven't had a chance to look at. So once I've looked into it in more detail, I can get back to you.
Ken, do you have some insight into that?
Yes, through Your Worship, generally speaking, the housing needs assessment would look at the current housing stock within Southgate. So whomever is going to do the work would look at what is the existing makeup of all of the residential stock within the community, not just new, but existing. That then forms the basis to look at what is your need. So are you getting a larger proportion of one type of dwelling versus another? Because if you look at your official plan, it speaks to this idea that you want to encourage a wide variety of forms of residential housing that meets the needs of everyone, regardless of income or ability or age demographic. I can say just generally, and this is not just specific to Southgate, that the vast majority of what is occurring in Ontario is single detached dwellings, where the need is the greatest, is what we planners refer to as the missing middle, which is semi-detached, duplex, triplex, four-unit townhousing, grade oriented. But it would be helpful for us and for Grey County particularly as we move forward.
Thank you, Ken. There you go, Cash. You got something to do this weekend. Monica, you have a question.
Yes, and good morning again to everyone, and good morning, Mayor Millen. I heard the shout out earlier, but my mic wasn't working. So anyhow, just through you, Mayor, to Akash, with regards to non-negotiable terms that were mentioned there, since the agreement does not allow for negotiations, are there any terms or conditions that we should be particularly aware of or concerned about? And how would those terms be compared to previous agreements?
Cash?
Your worship, thank you for the question, Councillor Sangsars. There isn't really any terms that we should be concerned with. This is a pretty standard agreement. The reason it is non-negotiable is so that they don't have to negotiate with 444 entities. They've got one prescribed agreement, and we're all working off of the same agreement. There isn't anything that we need to be concerned about worth noting. The one change, as I've noted in the report, was with regards to municipalities with populations of greater than 30,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cash. Barb?
Thank you through you to Akash. The nice thing about this one is we don't have to apply and get into a competition with 443 other municipalities. What was the year of the census again? Was it 2020? That we were at 2021 at 8,500, and we're probably surpassing 10,000 now. So it's too bad that it wasn't more current per capita data, because we're getting underfunded in that regard. But thank you very much for the report.
Monica, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So just slightly to that point of the deputy mayor, with regards to potential and future funding increases, is there any indication from the federal government that you would be aware of, or AMO, about potential increases in CCBF funding in the future years? And is there a way that we would be able to position ourselves to take advantage of any additional funding opportunities?
Cash?
Your worship, because CCBF is a formula-based funding, it'll always be based off per capita. Any increased funding would come through the federal government announcing additional funds. I haven't heard of anything along those lines. Having said that, one of the concerns has been that with the advent of electric vehicles and electric and hybrid electric vehicles becoming more prevalent in our society, there is a concern that the amount of money going into the gas tax or being collected through the gas tax is going to decrease over the long term, and governments are going to have to figure out, whether it's provincial and federal or municipal, will have to figure out how to make up that difference. So far, we haven't really seen that effect, or the reduced income from the gas tax. And even during COVID, the provincial government had reduced the amount of the provincial gas tax that was collected, but we didn't see the knock-on effect on municipalities for our capital funding through that. So it's hard to predict at this point, but certainly as things come up, I will keep council posted.
I have a follow-up for that.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I really appreciate that, Akash, or Deputy Treasurer, that you mentioned touching on our impact on our strategic goals. And when we want to look at our financial planning and budgeting, with that in mind, what you just mentioned with the EV and with the gas tax funding and having that prepared, how will the financial implications of the CCBF funding be integrated into our long-term financial planning? And are there any specific funding strategies or partnerships being considered right now to sustain the initiatives?
Cash?
Through your worship, I think it's two separate issues. Like I said, it's hard to predict what will happen with the future of the CCBF funding. There is a few different working groups that are looking at it and trying to consider what the alternatives could be. From a Southgate perspective, looking at those numbers, not getting the CCBF money would effectively mean about a 1.5% approximate levy increase based on based on the 2024 budget to make up that funding gap. That isn't really sustainable across the 444 municipalities, and the CCBF is a federal grant, so really across all the municipalities in Canada that receive this funding, that wouldn't be sustainable. So there is several working groups. One of them that we are a part of is at the Toronto Metropolitan University, and they're considering the effect of the gas tax funding on in Ontario. And they've gathered a bunch of people from various different backgrounds, and we're speaking to the rural experience and with regards to gas tax. So there's working groups that are looking at this issue. As far as working with other municipalities, those are operational decisions based on the projects that we're looking at completing, that we would consider pooling resources if needed, if there was a joint project. However, in the last couple of years, we've generally done projects that are local within Southgate, and so we haven't really worked with other municipalities.
Thank you
Sure.
for that
Thank you.
comprehensive. Yeah, thank you for the comprehensive answer. And I do think it's something worth noting to be monitoring as the times come forward. And so thank you again, Akash, for that.
Okay. Any other questions? Jason?
See there, Cash, it says the money is for use in prescribed capital projects. What kind of can we do with the money? Like just a quick overview, or what? How restricted are we?
We have a lot of breadth to work with. The most current, according to our agreement, the most current list of projects that we have broadband connectivity, brownfield redevelopment, capacity building, energy systems, cultural infrastructure, which is basically infrastructure that supports arts, humanities, or heritage, drinking water, fire halls, roads and bridges, public transit, recreational infrastructure, airports, resilience, so basically renewable and natural infrastructure assets to protect against extreme weather events, short line rail, short sea shipping, solid waste, sport infrastructure, tourism infrastructure, and wastewater. So basically almost anything that we discussed during our capital budget deliberations, we can use the CCBF money for.
Okay. Good. Again, go ahead.
Well, just more of a comment on they're talking about the housing needs study. It's not mandated till we're at 30,000. Is that so? I don't know. Last thing we need to do is pay a consultant till we get closer to 30,000, I think, just a comment.
Yeah, fair enough.
Sorry, through your worship, the intent was not to recommend that we do this. The intent of that paragraph was simply to point out that there has been a change, and this is what the change is.
Very good. Thank you. Dina?
Just to add one comment to that, I believe the county is looking at doing a housing needs assessment countywide, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe we can tag on to that, I'm not sure. But it did actually prevent us from applying for a significant grant. So sometimes studies are required. Not saying that we need to do a housing needs assessment necessarily. We're growing out every orifice really here, but it does have other impacts that you just might want to consider.
Okay. All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. And the corresponding bylaw to enable the agreement. Someone care to move that? Barb and Jim? Any further discussion? Anything to add to the bylaw, Cash?
No, your worship.
All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very
had a-
much, Cash.
Yes, I
Appreciate your
had a-
time. Go ahead, Monica.
Just had a point of order. I just noticed, I got a message. I want to make sure my technology is working okay. So I just wanted to confirm because I got a message that the host muted my mic. So I just wanted to make sure my mic was working okay.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, because I wasn't sure why it said the host muted my mic.
I have no idea.
Okay,
All right,
all right. Thank you.
sorry.
Counselor Singh Source, sorry, it's Lindsay. It's just if you're not speaking to mute it just for background noise. I imagine that's why that happened, just when you're not speaking.
No, I'm totally in a room. There's no background noise.
Okay.
It-
Okay, moving on to Clerk Lindsay Green. She has a couple reports here, maybe three, it looks like. The first one is regarding the Foley Drain, additional volume of water, engineer appointment to look at that additional water. Someone care to move that, please? Joan and Jim? Madam Clerk.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Milne. I will not probably be able to answer many questions without Jim Ellis here, but this is just appointing an engineer to inspect additional water volumes of water through the Foley drain. So they don't foresee any major challenges here. Just have to appoint the engineer to do the work.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from council? Joan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly.
Thank you. Lindsay, just a quick question. Financial implication, any engineering costs incurred would be associated with the EA study. Who would pay for the EA study?
We would.
Yeah, that's through the township. Yeah,
Through the town.
that's most of that work's already been done, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Dina, did you have something to add? No? Okay. Barb?
Thank you. I too was curious about this. This is in relation to us upgrading our wastewater system, which would in turn then provide more output to the Foley drain. And this is an assessment of how the Foley drain will be able to manage that.
So it's an assessment of volume only, is my understanding, additional volume only. And it's needed for for the ministry and the requirements for our wastewater upgrade that we're planning on doing and tendering this fall. Is my understanding. And Burnside is our engineer for municipal drains. And it's just extra data that the ministry is asking for.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Next is a report regarding declaring a surplus property, part 2, in the Uncle Tom Crescent over in the Hoffman subdivision there, just northeast of Mount Forest. Madam Clerk, oh, I need a mover in a second. Sorry. Martin and Joan, thank you. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Milne. This was just an oversight, unfortunately. The council has seen this quite a few times over the last year. Most recently being approving the purchase and sale. That was just for part 1. Part 2 lands should have been included originally. It's a very tiny little strip, just a utility easement. So unfortunately, we have to go through the process of declaring surplus and advertising, but it should have been included right from the beginning with this purchase and sale agreement.
Very good. Any questions from council? Martin?
So Lindsay, this doesn't alter the price and any extra fees for the
No,
applicant, anything like it's just.
Just a formality, essentially.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. The third report from the clerk is the council conference and seminar attendance policy. Some revisions were made to policy number 2. Someone care to move that, please? Joan and Jim, thank you. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, through you. So policy number 2 had quite a bit of an overhaul here. We took out any reference to staff or the volunteer firefighters. That will be covered through the internal HR manual and the E&R bylaw through the fire hall. I put the notable changes in the report there. We have decreased, or we're recommending decreasing the eligible conferences from 3 to 2 for counselors, with the mayor maintaining the 3 per year. And kind of as a compromise, we thought we'd add 1 seminar or workshop per year that has a registration fee. I've had a lot of requests over the years for, I know AMO puts on quite a few events. They cost, $350, $400. So normally we have to say no to that unless you come to council for an exception. So we thought kind of a compromise to add 1 workshop or education event per year. The other main thing we changed here was the meal expense would be eligible to just be paid up front. So that's a change. And we added a non-attendance section just to clarify some of the parameters around that. Other than that, it's a bit messy because of the track changes, but it's in draft now. So looking for comments and feedback. And also, when we reviewed, there is could be some inconsistencies with policy 21 just related to per diems. So I've asked that council let me review those sections of that policy, not the remuneration amounts of that policy, but just more of the verbiage of it. And just to make sure there's no inconsistencies between the two. So other than that, I guess I'll just take questions and discussion.
Thank you, Lindsay. So to be clear, you're not asking for approval, you're asking for draft approval and any input, and you'll be bringing it back
Correct.
with any changes requested. Okay,
Correct.
very good. Questions from council? Joan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through Lindsay. Number 5, is the $75 automatic? As you go to the conference, you just get that 70?
Yeah, that was a change that we have added. We looked at quite a few neighboring municipalities' policy. This quite mirrors the county's policy. So yes, that is a change, yes.
So is there anything that you would change based on a conference? Because when I went to Oka, just as an example, we got breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the conference. So I don't think if you're going to Oka, you should get the $75 automatic. As a taxpayer, I would not like that, because I would think that it's double dipping, because we're getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then getting the $75. So that's just maybe something that you could look at for that particular conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Any other questions? Martin?
Just a comment. I saw that too. And we used to just do the receipts. So you never used to use the full 75. So maybe look at that. Another comment, I think it's good that you're changing part of it over to the HR. As council remuneration, we're elected, we're not hired. So there should be that. I think there should be that gap. So just other than that, don't see too much change.
Thanks, Martin. Barb?
Thank you. Through you to Lindsay. Thank you for bringing this forward. I know that you've had a long list of priorities, so this is good that it's back. I do have a couple of questions or comments. I not in favor of a flat $75 fee. Roma is included breakfast and lunch on the full day and breakfast on other days. I calculated, while it's not a significant annual cost, it's upwards of $3,000 if everyone just automatically gets $75. I like the idea of receipts, but I can appreciate the difficulty of the clerk's department assessing whether those receipts have guests or family members benefiting from the meal allowance. And this would allow that this would be of benefit to anyone who, it's just basically paying us an extra $75 a day while we're at the conference. If it was going to be a flat fee, I would reduce it to maybe $50, because most of the conferences have breakfast and lunch, but you might have to have dinner. And, that would be my suggestion. If we're not going to be accountable for what we're spending, then I would reduce it from 75. The one seminar, I love the idea of this one seminar and the two conferences. Would the one seminar, do we have to decide in December when what seminar we're going to do? Because AMO develops seminars throughout the year, which, wow, given something that's happening in our community, this would be of great value to go to. We would be able to then just contact the clerk's office and request our one seminar registration.
Yeah, that's correct. The more for the fall stuff is just as you're aware, the conferences ask quite a bit in advance, and then we can also take advantage of early bird fees. But no, the seminars more just come up through the year.
And these are relatively one-day seminars where no hotel would be a requirement.
No, so that's covered in the policy, the definition of seminar workshop I put is defined as a one-day educational event. And then under, I think it's 6.3, it says what we'd pay for a seminar, which is just the registration fee and then mileage and parking expenses, if any.
Thank you. I did notice that. And thank you for clarifying that the two conferences includes attendance at either OCA or the Police Services Board conference. Those would not be in addition to the two annual conferences.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thanks. The one other thing that I have a concern of that I find particularly helpful is it appears that the requirement to submit a conference report has been removed. And we attend these conferences as a privilege, as a cost of education. And I think it's important that we share at least whether the conference was of value. And the one-page form, you don't have to write a dissertation on your attendance, but I think the one-page form at least provides some value and some reporting to the taxpayer about the value that the individual who attended is getting from going to the conference. I understand that it's difficult. Like the policy right now says you must submit a conference report, and I note that some are not doing that. And perhaps there needs to be some form of incentive, not use the word penalty, but an incentive for the member to submit the report in a timely fashion, perhaps withholding the per diem from the member until the report is submitted. It's a one-page report that can be easily completed. I know I've seen some conference was of value. Can it be held in, could it be held in-house? Likely not. And would you recommend it to others to attend? Yes or no? I think that's of value. So I would like to see that the conference report and some form of incentive to submit that report be employed. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Jace?
I just wanted to touch on the meal allowance as well. I kind of, for me, that's, you're going to eat whether you're here at home or at the conference, so it shouldn't be on the taxpayer, I don't think. I just going back to the HR, the staff falling under HR, is there a policy how many conferences staff is attending? And I just wondered that basically. Yeah.
Dina?
Yes, there is a policy, and it is done through the budget process as well. So each department has a budget for conferences, and that's approved through the budget process. Typically, most don't. Most department heads go to one, maybe two, depending on what their roles are. And then there are other educational opportunities, but yeah, there are rules surrounding that. I just don't have it in front of me, sorry.
Okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, Joan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since Councillor Rice brought it up about the staff conferences, I think, just my opinion, that if planning staff
and anybody else that is included in the Committee of Adjustment should go to OCA, because that was where I went to learn and start asking questions in the Committee of Adjustment meeting, because I did learn a lot about the planning and the Committee of Adjustment, and that has enabled me to do much better. So, and while we were there, we were saying planning staff should really be here, or anybody from that department. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Any other, Jason? Oh, and then Monica.
I was just curious, with the mayor being allowed to attend an extra one, don't you guys get that through the county anyways, or is it?
We get one through the county.
Oh, just one? Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you had,
Well, the warden gets a number, but
oh, right.
individual counselors get one.
Okay, I just wondered, yeah. I
Current.
thought. Okay.
Yeah. Monica, please.
Yes, so thank you. I just been listening in to what's being said, and just to the last point of Councillor Rice, my understanding, just for clarity, that at the county level, the position of mayor and deputy mayor are automatically made into regional councillors. So on Grey County, my understanding is that there's an allotment of 2 conferences each there, and then the warden also gets unlimited Canada-wide. And our warden happens to be our mayor. So I just wanted to, mention that's my understanding. With that being said, because this agenda came out on Thursday, and then Friday and Monday, Friday's a long weekend, and Friday of a long weekend, and then Monday people are away, and then Tuesday everyone's rushing to catch up on everything. And there's a lot being changed on this policy. I, for one, have not had the ability to connect, to have more questions, because I do find that the way sometimes these conversations are going with regards to the conference policies are very subjective and very like thinking that this is like a fun time away. These conferences are very important, not just for representation of our municipality, but it's also a way for us to do delegations, which we have seen this year has been very successful, and also to represent, to network and represent, all of what we're doing here. I know there might be some that think that councilors or mayors or whatever are going away and just having it up as a good fun, but it's a lot of time away from family and planning. So I want to be that voice, just to say that this isn't just a fun getaway. There's a lot of work. At least I'll speak for myself. From 5 in the morning till 11 p.m. at night, it's nonstop going, and I do want to express a concern about the fairness. While I appreciate the effort to update the policy, I do again find it unfair that if there is a conference availability to the position of mayor and deputy mayor at the county level, and then over here we're talking about double dipping for food, but what about conferences in a way? I'm just saying the optics, and I really appreciate the mayor's expression to me in the past where he has said that he really believes that conferences are important, especially for new counselors to attend. He understands the depth of needing this type of education and all of that. I do have a lot more questions. I do have a lot more comments to that. Just to the point about the food, I think we're forgetting that there are people who may have dietary restrictions. So it's not always the food that's available there that people may be able to eat all the time. And I, for one, have not spent any money on food at times when I've been there, because I do eat what is there. But then there's sometimes when there's food there that dietary wise, I can't eat. So we're taking that time to go away and to be there. I don't drink alcohol. I don't, going out and late, and it's nothing like that. I go to do the work and come back, and I take away time from my family. And I understand we're not, there's commentary about being for hire and not for hire. I mean, I don't even think, I'm not sure if that's a good place to bring this conversation into that. We're talking about conference attendance policy. So just with that being said, I did have a question about the police board. So, and the OCA. So like I said, I have a lot of questions about this. I would like to connect with somebody, please, if someone could get back to me. I would like to connect about this and talk a little bit more further about it. I'm on the police services board, so my understanding that this is saying that count is basically 3-2-1. So the mayor would get 3, the deputy mayor would get 2, the councilors would get 1. So if regional council is already getting conferences at the county level, why don't we do it the other way around and do it 1, 2, 3? So then the councilors, and some don't even go to any conferences, and some don't even use all the $75 or whatnot. So we're maxing out and doing, like, saying things that are not necessarily calculating correctly. So I was hoping, one, clarity on the conference meetings at the regional level, and 2, about the police, like if someone's on OCA or someone's on police services board. So are we saying counselors get 2 or counselors get 1? And if they get 1, then, and they want to go to either of those that they're on committee for, then that's the only one they get? Or could we clarify that?
So thank you for your questions. For clarity at the county level, you are correct. The warden is unlimited. But counselors get 1 currently, not 2. Historically, it has been 2, but this year the budget was changed and counselors attend 1. Madam Clerk.
Through you to Councillor St. Soares, I can clarify the changes to our policy. It would remain for the mayor only that they would be able to attend 3 conferences, and for the deputy mayor and all councillors would be able to attend 2. So it's 2 conferences for councillors and the deputy mayor, but that does include if you attend OCA or OAPSB, that would count towards 1 out of your 2 conferences for the year.
Thank you, Lindsay. And I would reiterate that the clerk is available for any discussions regarding this policy, because we're not approving the policy today. We're asking for discussion, questions, suggestions, and in fact, going forward, if there are any further discussions or questions or suggestions, by all means, talk to the clerk. Okay? Any other questions? Sorry, Lindsay, go ahead.
Yeah, if we can, if you do have more questions, Councillor St. Soares, please ask them now and I can try my best to answer them through the meeting right now. I do want specific direction on the meal allowance, just because that's been brought up and the evaluation form has been brought up. So I would look for specific direction on those 2 items so I know whether to or how to bring those back. But if you have any more questions, I'm sure I can clarify now if you want.
And I would also say, thank you, Lindsay. I'd also say that if someone feels strongly that they want to give clear direction to the clerk, if you want to make a motion to change something in the policy or to endorse something in the policy, by all means, now's the time to do it. But we will have further opportunity in the future when the clerk brings back the draft policy. Monica, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, like I said, there's a lot of questions. So I do thank you, clerk, for allowing that discussion for now. For the evaluation form, I don't think that it's a good idea to just, fill out a 1 line and get it in for the sake of getting it in. I've submitted my reports, and I do like to be very reflective, and I do like to make sure the taxpayer are able to see what my experience is and to give a very good comprehensive report. So I think that there should be, a timeline. And if there's a request, a little reminder, we all have, some of us have lives outside of this, where we need to be with some of us have small kids, we're involved in lots of committees, we're doing a lot of things, and we make all of our notes and we put it together. So I don't want it to become like this pressurized thing where people will be penalized because they didn't get a conference report. And because we do travel together, at least something is, brought back if someone does have it in sooner. I really enjoyed Public Works Jim Ellis report from Good Roads. It was very, very good. I just submitted mine. So I know that if there are some questions about that, but I find that that's a little bit too much to put that kind of pressure that way. But yeah, submit the conference report, but being penalized for that, I don't think it's a good idea. So about the, sorry, Lindsay, do you mind if I ask you, you were saying that the evaluation form, and what was the other clear direction on the other item you said? I didn't write it down.
Sure, it was just discussed the meal allowance of the
Oh.
75. Right now, it's in the draft to be automatically provided.
Yeah, so thank you for that, clerk. The meal allowance, I know that sometimes there be a majority of people that are all okay with how the food is and stuff, but not everyone uses the full amount. I'm okay with receipts being submitted. But other than that, I think that we're so far away from home, and if someone needs, we shouldn't be like concerned or not if we be in or out of a meal allowance. Again, there's days I've never used it at all. But then there's days that there were some things being served that it's not part of my diet. And to run around, and conferences are so busy, I think that you're proposing that the automatic $75, is that what was being proposed?
That's what's in the draft now, yes.
Okay.
But I've heard the comments around the table from, I would say, the majority that they don't agree with that. So, but I do want clear direction to remove the direct paying of the meal allowance and put it back in as previous with receipts.
Okay. I'd also just strongly declare, for me, I would want to keep it because again, not everyone uses it. Not everyone, and I actually would keep it 3 conferences if anyone wants to use it. And if there's already at county level 1 even being offered, then I don't know. It's creating an unfairness. Let's just be straight about that. Like the difference between the mayor, position of, not the people in it, the position of the mayor, the deputy mayor, and councilors for future is feeling a little bit hierarchical. Like I know we all have positions, but I find it to be a little unfair.
Okay, thank you. Barb?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to respond, there is additional work and responsibility that comes with the office of the mayor and the deputy mayor. And currently, our mayor is the warden. That may or may not be the case next year. I believe that when you attend a conference on behalf of the county, you are representing the county as well as your local municipality. You're attending delegations on behalf of the county, and that comes with additional responsibility as well. So if we're attending conferences on behalf of the county, and they're paying for it, then there's a reason that the mayor and deputy mayor are appointed to the county council, and that comes with additional responsibility. Whether it's 1 or 2 conferences, the county council decides based on budget, and that's what we try to do here in Southgate. I like the idea of the ability to book a seminar or workshop mid-year. I think that is of great value. And I'm fine with 2 conferences, 1 conference. It all depends on, what our schedules allow. Obviously, we all have busy lives and we all have other committees and boards and responsibilities. So we will address those each year as to our ability to attend conferences. I would like to move that we put back in the conference report and that meals should be accompanied by receipts because not all of us incur meals. And so that would be an as used basis, but it should be for meals consumed by us individually, not additional guests. So I'm not sure how we monitor that, but that's not up to us. So I would move that the conference report be reinstated and that the meals be by receipt.
If I may,
Yep.
through the mayor, can we do it as 2 separate? So your first one, or I'll just pick a first one, that council directs staff to remove directly paying the daily meal allowance from the draft policy and make any necessary further amendments surrounding the meal allowances as discussed. So that would be removing directly paying.
So reinstating the receipts.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Seconder, Jason?
No.
Oh, Martin, seconding?
I just want to have a comment.
I need a I need a seconder. Okay, if you're,
No, I was gonna comment.
I need a seconder before, okay, proceed. Martin, seconds.
Thank you. I don't know about a penalty on the form for attending.
Sorry, Martin, we're just discussing the meal allowance first.
So yeah, separate. Okay, meal allowance, I think it's easy to get the receipts and to make it easier for the clerk. We're not allowed to submit alcohol, even if it's on the bill. So you have your receipt. And if you order a hamburger and my spouse orders, you just cut it down to who paid what. Is my wife allowed it? Or is a guest allowed it?
No.
No. So that's what I mean. You look at your receipt. We personally do the work, hand it to you. This out of a $50 receipt, I'd like $20 back or 25. So
Yep.
that makes it easier for them. So I do agree with that. That's just basic common sense, I think.
Yep.
Okay. Jason?
I just couldn't remember, is there a cap on the?
It's
75.
75.
It is
per day.
75, okay, yeah.
That'll stay.
75 per day.
Okay, yeah, no, that's,
Okay.
So
and-
that's what we're talking about right now. That's what the motion would be to basically reinstate what was previous.
Right. Monica, did I see your hand up? Go ahead.
So can we call the question?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
Oh, I was just saying
good?
yes to it. I was saying
Okay.
yes to what she was asking.
All right. Very good. Any other questions on the motion on the floor? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Second motion, Madam Clerk, is
So the
regarding,
second- Now, Deputy Mayor Dobrin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have that council direct staff to add the conference evaluation form back in to the draft policy with the criteria that the evaluation form be submitted in order to be paid per diem attendance. That's what you had initially said, but I can amend that.
Barb? Is that the intent?
I think if there is a reminder to individuals that the conference report is overdue and people make an effort to get the report in, that would be sufficient.
Very good.
And I do want to just clarify that the deputy mayor is a counselor here.
For the
at South-
purposes
For the
of-
purposes of Southgate, the deputy mayor and counselor are equal here in Southgate.
Correct, yeah.
Dina?
Can I just want to clarify through the clerk, with regards to the conference report? Nothing precludes a council member from bringing forward a report on a conference in the new policy. Is that correct? Like we're asking for it to be mandated rather than voluntary. Is that what I'm understanding?
What is to be mandatory?
The conference report.
Correct. And
So
my understanding is
That's
that,
the change, but if we left it as is, it's voluntary, so members of council could still, nothing precludes a member of council from bringing forward a conference report
correct.
voluntarily, is what I'm
Correct.
asking.
Go ahead.
So the current policy, not this one, but the current policy says we must provide a conference report, and I would like to see that reinstated.
Okay, I need a
Question.
seconder.
I have a question.
I need it. Okay, I need a seconder first for the motion. Martin, you're seconding? Okay, Monica, go ahead.
So just to be very clear, because what is the parameters of a reminder? What is the parameters of, so if a reminder can be the next day and a timely fashion can be next week to some people, to some will be like, if you can get it in within 90 days or a certain period of time. I'm really not liking the whole penalizing. Let's take it down a little. I feel like it's very, I don't know what word I'm trying to find. It's very penalizing and
So if I could just jump in there, the
Sure.
intent is the policy will remain the way it is currently written. It is voluntary. There are no penalties, no incentives, but the policy is there that the clerk will remind the member in a reasonable time. We're not unreasonable people here, I don't think. And that's what is being proposed here, that each member would provide a report in a reasonable amount of time to the rest of council.
Okay, it's
Any
just,
questions? Go ahead.
it's just that that's not what I just wanted to confirm if that's what the deputy mayor meant.
If I may?
Yeah.
I withdrew the incentive by withholding per diems. It is simply to reinstate the requirement for a conference report. And that staff are going to bring back some kind of wording that, you know, as a standard operating procedure, it won't be in the policy, that they will gently remind us that we forgot to submit our report. And we're all guilty of that from time to time.
The mayor more so than others.
Just one
Martin.
more, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Just one more follow, yeah, just one, sorry, one more follow-up for that was that
Yep, go ahead.
I just find that for definitions, because we are in the policy, we're making policy and we're mandating and, or now we're saying voluntary. Reasonable amount can mean something for one person and then for another. So if I could ask kindly ask the clerk during the draft proposal, if that could be, I don't know if this is a direction or what it is, but if it would be possible to just kind of give an idea in the next time you bring it forward, what a reasonable amount would be so that it remains uniform, inclusive, and consistent with every single member, so that there's a fairness there.
Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mayor Milne. I think we will have to look at some of the wording around it, and it could vary, you know, a little bit from what's in the current policy, but I think if we put a reasonable amount, I don't know, 3 months or something. The previous policy stated 3 months for receipts. So if we wanted to mirror that, I'm not sure. Honestly, I'll have to take a look back at that wording and try to make a best recommendation for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, I had Martin first and then I'll go to Joan.
Yeah, just a comment. I think I mentioned this last time when it came to the conference reports. It's so subjective. I think Jason just mentioned it, or somebody just mentioned it around the table. You know, not to penalize it. And if you just want to use the sheet that the township provides, all well and good. There's some conferences I've been to, I feel like writing a tome. I could give you 10 pages, but common sense, no, I know I wouldn't, but common sense dictates if you're not a writer, use the form, give the taxpayers an impression of what you did. And if you like going into depth, like I've read Barb's, I've read mine, obviously. You have to write the darn thing. You know, I might have 5 pages as well. And we all make notes. If you don't make notes at a conference, well, that's one of the reasons why you're there then. So we can fill out that form. It's subjective. I think the whole point is just to keep it in there. And then each individual can use their own talents, their own biases, their own thoughts, because we all have different writing styles. So I say, keep it in there. I think one of the last ones, I took it on a personal note just to make it interesting. It depends on how you portray what you've seen.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Very good. Joan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Lindsay, thank you very much for what you just said about the policy for receipts, because I haven't been sending in mine. So I think I might have a little leeway there to send some in. And also for the, I keep forgetting, I just don't send it in. For the reports, I don't think should be staff should remind us to submit our report. We went to the conference. We should know that we should send it in. I don't think that should be added in there. Because we're responsible. We were voted in. We know we have a lot of things to do. We know what we were getting into when we came here. When we walk around and knock people door and said, vote for me because I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. So I think we should continue to do what we said we were going to do. So that's my comment there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Barb?
If I could just simplify it, I think the clerk, if we went back to what is currently stated, is just reinstate, bring it back in. It currently says that we must submit a report, be responsible, submit the report within a timely fashion. Don't even include the timely fashion. If you don't, then if you don't submit it, if you have the time to send a gentle reminder, then that's great. But make it simple. That's all we're asking, is that we still, I think the general consensus is that a conference report in whatever form that takes is of value.
Jason.
On that, the people put their trust in us to elect us. I get what you're saying by a mandatory report, but all it's doing is creating work for Lindsay as far as I'm concerned. Council approves us to go to the conferences. So I'm not sure, like, any report I've seen, no offense to anybody, it's all the same jibber jabber. No, we were supported by the community to be here. We were approved by the budget to go to that. I don't really, like Martin said, everybody writes it different. And, I don't know. It seems to me just a big project for Lindsay to take on. So I really don't see why it had to be mandatory. And if we had to pay for the conferences ourselves, we wouldn't have anybody going. So we'll go anyway, leave it at that.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
And can someone go to a conference if they want to pay it themselves?
I'm not going to stand in your
Yep.
way.
I just wondered. No,
Yeah. No, fair enough.
So
Point of clarity. A point of clarity.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right now, this discussion is only about conference report, but we can still add comments after this is voted on. Is that right? Or should we also be talking?
You can still, absolutely, you can contact the clerk with any further suggestions, questions, that kind of thing. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor. But I mean, for current discussion, like, are we going to be voting on this conference report and then still discussing the conference, or should I? Because I did have a question. I still had an outstanding question.
Right. The motion on the floor is to give clerk direction specifically about the conference report. That's what the current motion on the table is.
Yes. So I just wanted to speak to that one more time about what Councillor Rice just said, to his point.
Okay, go ahead.
And to Councillor Shipston. It is true, like, people, they write things differently. They do things. There is a subjective piece to the conference report. There are some people that all they do is counsel, and they can go home and they make notes and they love to write, and they can write an Encyclopedia Britannica and submit it, and everything's good for them. Then there's some people who are on the roads from 7 a.m. till midnight, and they're trying to get their notes together, and some have kids and some have. So we just need to I just feel this is getting a little, like, fun police. I don't know what to call it. Like, it's getting to thing. Yes, let's submit a conference report. I think we should also allow people, if two people are going to a conference. I heard this last year from some council member. I can't remember exactly who, but there was a suggestion. I think that if two people are going, like Councillor Shipson and I went to FCM last year, if between us, we did a joint conference report. I mean, is that allowed? Some people don't like to write too much. Some people love writing. I love writing reports. That's what I pretty much do for my living. I love writing. So some people hate it. Some people are audio. Like, how far are we going to go with this conference report? So let's just, just a little bit of leeway, understanding. Yes, it has to be done, but doesn't have to go so far to penalize and bring up these kind of discussions.
There is no penalty attached to the
Was
current
suggested.
motion. Yeah, there's no penalty attached or incentive on the motion as proposed. Martin.
I'm just
then
going
John.
to say, I like the fact that we can go to 2 conferences, and I like the fact we're budgeted 1 seminar.
We're speaking about the report.
I know,
Keep that in mind.
I know.
Okay.
But as far as feedback goes, I think that's great. Because I went to one that I paid for myself, but I was glad I did. And I'm glad I can put a thing in to go to another
Sure.
seminar. So I think it's just should be kept the way it is, what we've talked about.
Okay. Joan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was just a comment, and Councillor Singsor has touched base on it. I was just going to say, if 2 people attend a seminar, we could put together and write 1 report. That would be less work for Lindsay too. We could come together and write 1 report. Everybody have what they think, and instead of everybody put it in a report, since it is so much confusion right now.
Yeah.
So that's something we could add there.
I will.
To my mind, if a councillor has affixed their name to a report, they've submitted their report. Whether there's their name or 6 other names on it. If you've signed the report, that's your report. Okay,
Call the question.
we're getting close. Last chance.
Yes.
Okay, call the question.
Yes,
Monica,
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just to Councillor John's comment, I think that's a good idea. For me, I probably would not do that, but it's not for our own selves. I know there's others that would be okay with that, and I think that's a good idea. If 2 people signed it, is that what you meant, Mayor? That if your name
yeah,
is
or 2 people or 10 people sign it. As long as you've affixed your name to a conference report, you've fulfilled the policy.
I would like to, can we move that? Or what, how do you,
It's already on the floor. That's where we're at.
like to be able to have a joint report submitted and that would be
Yep.
satisfying the needs?
That's right.
I like that.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. All right, now we're back to the motion or to the actual report recommendation. Is there any further direction that council wants to give to the clerk currently? Monica?
Yes, just to the further, thank you, Chair. Just for the earlier comment from Deputy Mayor about the warden having, excuse me, the mayor having another position and sorry, my thoughts are coming to me. Oh yes, so at the Grey County level, that the warden has different responsibilities. The councilors are appointed there automatically. They're not voted in. They're automatically appointed there. So all of that, what was being said, we talk about double dipping and double cost, but I think it's a double savings. If someone on Grey County, not specifically speaking to the people, so I want to make that very clear. I'm just talking about the position of, I mean, if you can go there and unless there's a delegation through Southgate, that's a exemption, like exception. But if you're already going there, you can, it's the same exact, almost exact same conferences that are available at different levels. We should talk about double savings too then, in that case. So, and it's very good that I do understand, I know the Deputy Mayor was explaining to me the different responsibilities of the roles, which I'm very, very understanding of. But to keep it in context of conferences, we are all equal that way, because I do believe that we all add value and there are different things that we all bring when we go to these conferences. So I think that there's a lot of more work to be done. I know it's 2. Again, Councilor Rice, he only goes sometimes to none or 1. Some are able to go to 3 if their schedule allows, and some not. I don't think that we're maxing out at such a high level all the time. So I will be having follow-up questions and comments to the clerk.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the question on the recommendation in the policy that will include the suggestions that we've already give the clerk. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you, council. All right. Who wants to take Jim's report on the charging station? I'm going to ask for a mover. Martin and Joan, thank you. So the clerk looks like she really wants to take on this one. She's really electrified by this report. Sorry.
No,
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Yes, through you, Mayor Milne, and I may jump in with Dina here. This is a pretty simple policy. Everything I believe is done on the parking lot now. So just getting this policy in place, there will be some recommendations and changes to the parking bylaw and associated fines through the set fine schedule. I think if you have anything to add, Dina?
As well as fees. We will
Fees,
determine fees, but we are looking at the data first and we're having some difficulty in getting data, but it will take some time to get enough data to understand the fees. But we will be doing an update to the fee bylaw.
Very good. Any questions from council? Martin?
I had a question for Jim. I don't know if you can answer it. I can certainly ask him on my own time, but the level 2 charging, is that a fast charge or is that the middle charge?
Middle,
Middle.
level 3 is fast.
That's what I thought. Okay, so thank you for that. Just the comment though, 3 or 4 charging stations, whatever it will be. I'm pretty sure Brenna likes the idea because everybody who has an electric car has an app to say where a charging station is. So it'll bring people into town. And if it's a mid-charge, then they're more likely to have to stay in town. So at least the restaurants might get some benefit of. So it is a far-reaching thing, and I'm totally in favor. I don't want an electric car, but I'm in total favor of the idea.
Very good. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Corresponding bylaw is next to adopt the policy. Barb will move, Jim will second. Any questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Mercifully, we've already done all the planning stuff. Moving on to the, sorry, Ken, I know you were ready to jump in there again. I know, and I'm conscious of the sale today, so. Bylaws and motions. We have the canine bylaw there as amended, I guess, suppose, if it reflects the discussion we had 2 weeks ago. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Martin will move. Joan will second. Thank you very much. Who wants to step into this? Dina.
Stepping in. So we made a few changes to the bylaw reflecting the discussions from the previous council. We clarified the definition of at-large, and we clarified that for kennels, veterinary, in order to get a license, it does have to be inspected by a licensed veterinarian. We also clarified section 2.17 regarding placing waste in a proper receptacle, and also added in that display of a kennel license. And that is, I believe that is basically it for the changes. It's just strictly clarification of those rules.
Thank you, Dina. Any questions from council? Martin.
Microphone.
Yeah, bear with him. I'm just trying to see. It was something to do with the kennel and the vet. I'm just. Bear with me. Oh, okay. Page 239 of the agenda. 10.5, a person making an application for a kennel license shall submit a complete application in the form provided by the township, inclusive of the completion of an inspection by the licensed veterinarian.
Yes.
So
that's the change.
Yeah, so does that mean there's going to be two, one from the township and one from the vet, or the vet signs the township application?
Yes, or provides them with something that they can attach to the license.
Okay.
Application, yeah.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Notice of motion. We have a notice of motion here from Deputy Mayor DeBreen. Barb, you'll move that motion?
Actually, through you, Mayor Milne, and with clarification through the clerk, I'd like to move a slightly revised wording as a result of seeing another resolution passed by other municipalities, if I may.
Sure.
And
Yep.
it has been put on the screen to show what additional wording I have asked for. So it is, whereas the Grey Bruce Detachment Joint Board is delayed in meeting due to the lack of insurance coverage and provincial appointments, and whereas the Southgate Police Services Board was required to be dissolved effective April 1st, and council and residents no longer receive updates from the OPP Detachment Commander. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Southgate requests that the province take immediate action to address the legislation that prevents the Police Services Board from obtaining insurance, as well as call on the province to make the provincial appointments so the new boards may fulfill their mandate And further, that the Council of the Township of Southgate requests that the OPP Detachment Commander forward the quarterly reports until such time as the Grey Bruce Detachment Joint Police Services Board is in full complement with provincial appointees, insurance coverage is in place, and it is actively meeting. And that the copy of this resolution be sent to the appropriate people listed therefore.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, just procedurally, are we allowed to, because proper notice wasn't given of the revised motion, are we okay to proceed?
I think you're okay. The original intent still remains the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
very good. I just wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Is there a seconder? Martin, thank you. Any discussion from council? Questions? Martin?
Just
And then
comment,
Monica.
just comment, the intent is still there, so it's perfect, that's, you know, that's perfectly fine. And considering with the new additions that the province is actually the one who made us close the board, they should be getting, if it had anything to do with fire, I'd say put a fire under their butt to get themselves moving, but that's a perfect, it's 10 times better than the original one, and we're trying to do something that the province told us to do, and they're not doing anything about it, so it's a perfect time to do it.
Very good. Thank you, Martin. Monica?
Yes, so just through you, Chair, with regards to this notice of motion, I just had to raise a point of inquiry just regarding that the notice of motion was submitted by the deputy mayor, and as a member of the Police Services Board, I wasn't consulted on the matter, and would appreciate some clarification on the process and rationale behind the motion. Just wanted to speak to that from a place of collaboration and transparency, because I was in contact with the staff at the clerks at Georgian Bluffs, and there are a lot of things that are in progress. So as we are all serving on different committees, as we know, if someone's on a committee, I think that is best practice, just making sure that things don't become redundant or just kind of not being able to give the opportunity for a progress update. There are many moving parts, different stakeholders, and the other police services board members that could be consulted. And I did receive information back that one of the OPP sergeants are now, because I did inquire about this notice of motion, and I did ask, like, as I'm already working on some things as to what's going on. So I would propose to defer this motion as well. I'm procedurally not sure how to do this, but I did want to ask that. I do understand and appreciate the intention behind the motion. However, I'm concerned about the lack of consultation with the Police Services Board, and moving forward, just suggest that we establish a more collaborative approach to ensure all relevant stakeholders are involved in the important decisions.
So I would, so I'd ask you if you have any further information regarding the issue that is, you know, this motion is trying to address. If you have any further information that would be appropriate now or have an impact on the motion, that you'd share it with us.
Yeah, so at this time, like, we do have the Georgian Bluffs clerk, the OPP sergeant involved. We're waiting for a response. This is something that is new for them as well. It's new for all the police service board members, and we are waiting to hear back. So to give a progress update, there's many moving parts again. So Mayor, I do appreciate what you're saying there. There's information coming back already. I don't think that they're not trying to get the information there. I think we just need to give them a little bit of breathing room so that they would be able to provide those updates. So I would prefer to either, one, I would want to make an amendment like to the motion that going forward, just any further, let's see here. Additionally, it be further resolved that any future motions or decisions related to Police Services Board and its operation be subject to consultation with all current members of Police Services Board and relevant stakeholders prior to submission to the council.
So you're putting that motion on the table?
Yes.
Okay, is there a seconder? There is no seconder, so that motion fails. So we're back to the original motion as proposed. It's your motion. Go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Singh Source. The difficulty with contacting the members of the Police Services Board is that you're not able to meet. I did consult with the clerk and our representative who attends the staff implementation team. And this came about as a result of a motion that was on the last, we received it on the last council meeting or 2 council meetings ago, because I neglected to pull it from the consent agenda to ask about it. So the original motion was a concern that this has been a failure to launch since 2019. Where we don't get feedback from the province. And due to the way the province wrote the legislation, I learned from the Kincardine resolution, the new regime isn't recognized as a municipal board. And so insurance companies won't touch it, or they're going to charge us an arm and a leg in order to do it. Due to the oversight, I think none of our communities have police services boards now, nothing actively meeting. So we have no means to talk to the detachment commander other than picking up the phone, and we don't want all of our municipalities doing that. So I did consult with the implementation team. On top of this, I know the cost associated with the one regional board is actually going to almost double what we were spending when we had our own police services board. So it is a sore point somewhat with municipalities in how it's being rolled out. And as a result of seeing in the news the Kincardine resolution, whereby they're calling on the province to not stall or drag their heels on fixing the legislation so that you and other members who have been appointed and appoint the provincial appointees can actually meet and fulfill their mandates. So bringing this notice of motion is for to draw attention to the fact that we are in limbo. And I appreciate that I haven't been able to consult with you. You are busy, and this was my opportunity to bring it. If you note from my notice of motion, it was dated, I think, June 5th, and I missed the deadline. So it would have come a lot sooner, and we would have had a lot more time. Thank you.
Follow up.
Very good.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for that comprehensive discussion there. We are all busy. I will always welcome connection with you, and I would do unto others, do unto yourself. So if anyone's on a board, I'm surprised no one seconded my motion because that wasn't just for me. If anyone's serving on a committee, I think it's best practice and teamwork and collaborative approach and transparency that we would reach out to the person who's sitting on our council who are on a committee to just run it by them and just, work together for that. So that was that point. But with regards to me being busy, I'm never too busy to fulfill my duties to the residents and to work collaboratively with the staff and with the council members. And I appreciate, again, as I said earlier, I do appreciate the intention behind the motion. However, I am concerned about the lack of consultation in that regard. So I still would recommend to defer the motion because I am still waiting for a response with the OPP and the clerks from there. So I would still defer it until the next council meeting because, Mayor, you did ask if there's any further information, then I would like to bring it forward already on the current motion put forward by the Deputy Mayor. Otherwise, would I have to bring forward another motion to give the update, or should we just work on the one that Deputy Mayor has done?
Well, I guess what I would ask you is, are you making a motion to refer this to the next council meeting?
Yes.
Okay, is there a seconder? There is no seconder, so that motion fails. So now we're back to the original motion as proposed here on the screen behind me. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Consent items, regular business. There's only one there, Public Works report. Anybody wish that removed for further discussion? Barb? Nope, she doesn't want to remove. Okay. Go ahead.
Just of note, the bridge, the number is escaping me, but it's going to be opened today.
113, is that what it is? I think,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Today?
I believe, yeah. Should
Yeah, in
be.
the report, it showed that it would be open this week sometime,
Yeah,
so
should
that's
be today.
good. Excellent, everybody. I know everybody at that part of the township will appreciate that. It's a long detour around. Okay, where was I? Oh, yeah, Public Works Department, motion to receive. Jim? Martin? Go ahead.
Thank you, through you. I just wanted to ask about, or thank the residents, Sandra Wallace and Mr. and Mrs. Arnott, for adopting their respective roads. I, as a result, went looking on the website for, well, there is no policy. It's just an application to staff. And how can we communicate this better? I think this is a wonderful initiative. I see the signs go up, and this is the first time it's actually, in my 10 years or 9 years, has come to share this great news. So thanks to the people who are adopting the roads, but how can we, or is there a plan to communicate that this is an option to residents in the future, and how can they go about applying?
Through you,
Please.
Mayor Milne. I don't know if Jim is thinking of a plan or anything like that, but we can certainly take this feedback back to him. It's always just been done through staff, and he has in the past put it in a department head report such as this. Yeah, I'm sure we can come up with a plan to shed some more light on the program.
Very good. Jason?
Just had a quick one on the crosswalk. I remember at our last discussion, or maybe last council, I wonder what the thermoplastics was, because I remember we were going to spend 10,000 and then it went back to 500. I just wonder what is this? It's just paint, or?
Yes, it's just heavier dutier paint that we put down that is supposed to not rub off.
Okay. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
sure, go ahead.
I actually asked that question of Jim Ellis, and when he was at the Good Roads Conference up on the trade floor, he found out about this polymer, whatever the paint is, and it's supposed to be a compromise, more durable. Hopefully it'll stand the test of time, because certainly the paint that we were using the last couple of years didn't make it through the winter, but yeah, it was something that he discovered at the Good Roads Conference. So another reason that staff should go to these conferences.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. The next is correspondence. There's one there from Community Foundation, Grey Bruce. Would someone care? Does anyone wish to remove that to change the motion? Okay, I need a motion to receive. Martin and Barb, discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Resolutions of other municipalities. I believe Joan wanted to remove one. Go ahead, Joan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pull consent item, oh, is this the one? 11.3.1.
Point one. Okay,
Thank you. The Bruce County correspondence.
Yep.
And,
so
sorry.
just hang on a second. Don't get too far ahead of me. I'll
Yeah.
forget where I am.
Yeah.
So that leaves the one item there, the asset retirement obligation from the town of Cobalt. Would someone care to move that we receive that one? Barb and Martin, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, Joan, you want to do something with 11.3.1. Go ahead, please.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose the following resolution. Do I need to get a mover? Just read it first. Oh, okay. I'll read it from here. Be it resolved that council receive consent correspondence from the County of Bruce regarding the request for the Ontario Ministry of Health to pause service level reduction for information, and that the Council of the Township of Southgate support the resolution of the Corporation of the County of Bruce. Attached. And that council directs staff to circulate this resolution to all municipalities in Bruce, Grey, and Huron, local MPs and MPPs, the Prime Minister, Premier of Ontario, and the Deputy Premier and Minister of Health.
Very good. Thank you, Joan. Is there a seconder for that motion? Jim? Jim seconds it. Do you want to speak to the motion, Joan, please? Or are you okay? You're okay? All right. Any questions? Discussion? I'll call.
Just a
Martin?
comment.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do. They just sent money to the health to quite a bit of money, and it really wasn't stopping any reductions in services. It was to add more windows and, so we need money for nurses, perhaps
Mhm.
not new windows. So
Yeah.
if that's part and parcel of this, I'm fine with it.
The new money was HERF, which is a calculated amount for hospital infrastructure renewal fund. Every hospital in the province gets it. It's based on a percentage of their budget. Okay, very good. Any other questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Joan. County report. Barb, you have anything?
Well, I guess the most exciting news was that the Grey County Long-Term Care Homes achieved exemplary standing with Accreditation Canada, and that is no small feat, as you indicated, Mayor Milne, as warden at the meeting. But that came, that was not a small achievement. And then right on the heels, we had the groundbreaking for the new Rockwood Terrace with the minister, and it couldn't have been a more exciting week as far as long-term care, and you could really tell how thrilled and proud staff were with moving that needle forward. So it'll be exciting times. I did note you mentioned about the drone footage, that I'm sure that they're going to have continued drone footage of how it's progressing, but we're looking forward to residents moving in January 2026.
Absolutely, which is wildly optimistic, I think, but let's see if we can do it. I will mention and give a shout out to the minister, Minister Kusindova Bashta. It took me a while to get that name down right, but I think I've got it right. It was exciting to meet her, and that was the first groundbreaking that she had done as minister. She'd only been minister 3 weeks at that point, so it was exciting to meet her, and you're absolutely right. 658 criteria in that accreditation, 659 rather, and they did 658. The last one was like right on the bubble, but of course the accreditors had to find something, so we'll give them that. Anyway, good news. Any questions regarding county stuff? Okay, members' privilege. Who would like to? Joan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Grey Bruce Owen Sound is booming. You can color it your way by attending any number of events from Southgate and beyond, and the mayor can attest to that. I've seen him all weekend. We really don't need to go outside of the township for events anymore. On June 22nd, we had the Pride Parade, the evening dance, plus the evening dance at the Legion. We had the Fireman Frolic, and we had a partnership with YWCA Settlement and Language Services Multiculturalism Day. I bravely attended all of the events, and of course, for Multiculturalism Day, we took a school bus load of Southgate residents to the Grey Roots Museum. We had a fashion show with individuals from Ukraine, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iran, Syria, India, Palestine, Kurdish, and from all over the Caribbean, especially St. Lucia and Jamaica. And I had the opportunity to collaborate with 7 organizations for Multiculturalism Day. It was really a great success, and I was pleased to support it along with Deputy Mayor Barbara Dubrin, Councillor Sunit Kukrija, and Carol Merton from Owen Sound. We also had the country dance with the Agricultural Society in Dundalk. Councillor Jim Ferguson was at the country dance, but refused to line dance with me, but that's okay. He said I was wearing the wrong shoes. Since we don't have another council meeting before July 26th, please check out Air and Earth Mini Music Festival. It's coming up in July 26th and 28th, and details can be found on Facebook. Fundraiser for Jamming for Junior, a camp week where youth learn to play instrument and get an introduction to music. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Anyone else? Barb? Oh, Monica, go ahead.
To echo Councillor John, yes, Multicultural Day at Grey Roots Museum was really great. It was fantastic. Actually, it was really great to see everyone there. My daughter had a really great opportunity through the YMCA to sing. So I'm very happy for that. And I did see Councillor John there. We greeted each other. deputy mayor as well, and it was really nice. With that being said, I just wanted to wish all the graduates of the school year the best to all of them. They're our future. And we just celebrated Canada Day, as we all know. So just wanted to say Happy Canada Day to everyone, and just have an amazing summer.
Thank you, Monica. Barb.
Thank you. And I echo both Councillor John and Singh Soors. There were so many activities, it was hard to choose. Canada Day weekend was a whirlwind with the rodeo, was well attended. The weather kind of cooperated. We had the Canada Day Connects that JCI put on Monday on Canada Day. And they, from what I can gather, I think they fed upwards of 200 people, and there was dancing and music and lawn bowling this year, which was interesting, a great partnership. And then fireworks and the car show in Holstein. There's so much going on that you can't get to it all. So it was a lot of fun.
Busy weekend for sure. Absolutely. The only thing I would add is that our thoughts are with, I'm sure, Joan and her family. It's bears down on the Caribbean, the hurricane. So I'm hopeful your family stays safe. Yeah, it perhaps has made landfall already in Jamaica. Yes, it has. So anyway, our hopes, our thoughts and wishes are with those folks. Okay, we only have a few minutes, so we're not going to do that motion that Barb always likes to do. So we're going to make sure we're done before noon. We have no closed meeting. Confirming bylaw. Who would like to move that? Jim and Martin. All those in favor? That's carried. One more motion to adjourn. Jason and Jim. All those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.